Hello, this is Mrs. Brady. Hello! And today we're going over transforming bulleted observations into a formal psychoanalytic report. We're first going to organize the information that we have bulleted from our observations. Then we're going to come up with topic sentences and main ideas, provide supporting details connected with transitions to make a full report. So first of all, we're going to look at our bulleted items. The bulleted items are in no specific organization. So first I'm going to decide what could be two subgroups for these bulleted items. The first subgroup I'm looking at would be defense mechanisms. Repression, denial, rationalization, identification, and displacement will all be highlighted green because they are all defense mechanisms. Unconscious, id, fixated, experience, all of these things have to deal with Freudian terms and troubling observations that we've seen. So I'm going to divide these two groups based upon color. Green for defense mechanisms, and then yellow for other behaviors that are troubling. For my main idea, for the defense mechanisms, I'm going to come up with a topic sentence that I feel like fully encompasses all of the data that I have acquired in the green section. So I'm going to write something like, Lori, female age 40, what you say? Has displayed a multitude of defense mechanisms to mask past trauma. Under that main idea, I want to decide how I want to organize the information that I have labeled as green. I've chosen repression as my first element that I want to explore. So I'm going to use a transition like firstly, then write out my notes to the identification of repression. That firstly, we have observed that Lori displayed the defense mechanism of repression by not acknowledging the root of her drinking. I'm going to further my observation by noting that Lori misplaced the acknowledgement of her losing weight and feelings of unhappiness. I next want to transition to the next idea. I'm going to use the word similarly because I see similar aspects to these two defense mechanisms in my observation. Wow. So I'm going to say similarly, Lori displayed denial behaviors because she denied the actual reality of her alcoholism through responses like, I'm not an alcoholic and I can stop whenever I want. I then want to add on to these mechanisms, so I'm going to use a transition like additionally. And so I'm going to turn my third observation for defense mechanisms from rationalization into, additionally, Lori displayed the defense mechanism of rationalization. I might feel like it's a good time to stop and what qualifies this response. So to show my thinking, I'm going to write out through our observation, we noted that she reasoned with herself that she has control over other behaviors. And then to further that identification, it's something that she enjoys to do, therefore she is rationalizing her behavior. I'm going to use a transition within a sentence like therefore to show my logic and to display my reasoning. I will continue with she makes excuses as well, countering a positive behavior of exercising to balance her negative behavior of drinking. I've decided to move displacement up in my list and tackle that next because I felt like identification should come last. It has to deal with her children, whereas displacement has to do with Lori. So I wrote in concurrently, Lori displaced her unhappiness through the channel of drinking before the idea of identification. I went in to use a natural transition. She also provoked her children to identify with her negative behavior of drinking. Since what's in yellow can't be attached to what's in green because they have different main ideas, I made a new paragraph. For the second paragraph, I went with the main idea. Lori also showed a litany of troubling behaviors that Freud would identify through using the unconscious. I decided to go in order of the bulleted points of unconscious, id, and fixated. And I thought that the last bullet point, experienced abuse, even though currently putting children through abuse, was more of a conclusionary idea, so I saved it for last. After putting in my my main idea, I decided to then order my supporting details through the transitions of what was the most obvious. So using the transition most obviously, that I moved into the idea that through her unconscious desires to be happy, Lori tried to lose weight because she thought it would meet the desire instead of facing her past experiences. Then I blended into one of Freud's personality structures, the id, and then it defined what it was, just to make clarity for my audience. I showed the result of it with a transition as a result, and I explained my reasoning behind how this meets a troubling behavior using Freud's identifications. I then used the transition in continuation.
Oh my God!
To flow to my next point, because I want to show that it's a continuing observation. In continuation, Lori was fixated in the latency stage due to her abuse. And then as I noted that the last bullet point was more of a concluding idea, I put in the transition in conclusion before my idea that since she experienced abuse in her past demonstrated through her display of defense mechanisms and other troubling behaviors, she continued the cycle of abuse with her children. As with most essays and articles, you should proofread quite a few times to go back and make sure that all of your sentences make sense, and reading out loud helps you decide if your sentence structure is sound. Thank you very much. This has been Mrs. Brady, and good luck.